Okay, great. Let me see. Yeah, so we're here and we are here present with Leonard and everyone, and we are doing a memorial and for Joe Stuntz family. One of the biggest things during that time when we were when they were there at this siege and when this happened was not taking account for the words or the things that were done for the people who lost their lives. We live in this time now where people lose lives and we don't carry on the appropriate ways to take care of their spirit, their soul that moved on. And one of the biggest things that we have been talking about as a committee and Dawn was to bring that awareness and to pay tribute. And so we're here to do that, to bring back the honor. And some of the ways we do that is to let that go. Some of the ceremonies that are included in all nations, First Nations, are ceremonies that include wiping of the tears. And so this is something that has not been done. And the family of Mr. Stuntz and the many people who have lost their lives have done their own ceremony within their families. I'm coming to find out over the years that, people have paid tribute in different ways, especially going back to the place where he lost his where he dropped his body, his spirit moved on. And so one of the reasons that we're here is to honor that spirit and to bring forth not only a life celebration of what has happened, but to also celebrate that we're still here and thinking of them, honoring their family, honoring their ancestors as well. And so we're going to go and talk about that, and hopefully this will continue to do a series because there's many more people who have lost their lives, and as you talk to the people and their families, they really are excited about this and hearing, especially for those who have first witness account of who was there. So that's what I'd like to say at this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tracker. Uh, the name of this video, I actually misworded it when Cecilia Jumping Bull asked if Joe was one of the men murdered. The police told her, no, he's just another Indian, or just an Indian. And we still have that disrespect today. I've been reading Voices from Wounded Knee 1973, and it could all be written today. I know when Leonard got out, he expected more change than there had actually been. He has sparked a lot of things within the movement, but I think it's time for us to escalate, and maybe we can come up with some ideas on how to do that. I want to share a picture real quick. This is Lou Gurwitz with Joe Stunt's brother, Virgil, courtesy of John with the Leonard Peltier Support Group. And this will also be a fundraiser for Leonard's Pine Ridge Christmas program. For decades, he has been doing this. These kids are rich in the way that Europeans will never understand, but many of them have never seen a toy or had a toy. So every one of you that donates $10 tonight will be responsible for putting a toy in the hands of a kid. You know, Leonard used to draw on the dirt with sticks. That was his toy. So we can take care of all kinds of things tonight in this meeting, and hopefully we'll come up with some ideas. Leonard, I was asked to tell you that one of the founders of Leonard's Angels is here tonight. Her name was Catherine, and she especially wanted to say hello to you.
Cool.
Yeah. Leonard's Angels kept Leonard going when he was in prison, sending letters and pictures and all that.
Good
But
letters. Good pictures.
but I madly appreciate all of you. I mean, I just feel enriched being with you. Leonard, thank you for being with us, my friend. I know everybody wants something from you. So you talk for 15 minutes or for 5 minutes if you want. Take it over.
Want me to speak now or what?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You're up.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, I'm a little new to this, as we all are. I think, this is the first time this has ever happened. I don't like to use the term celebrating because uh, we're not celebrating Joe's death. We're honoring his death and his gift to the people, which was his life. And I feel that should be a great honor for any of us. I never expected to be alive this long. Wakapanka Gitchimanadu has chosen a different direction for me, and I'm still here and I will continue to speak up. I can't get in the front lines no more. I'm sorry, I'm getting too old for this, but I can speak out. I intend to speak out. So, any type of events like this, I will try to be here for everyone that I can, and I think honoring Joe is a is a good thing. I believe in it. He was a good warrior. He wasn't anyone that was there for notoriety or anything like this. I don't think he was there to give his life. I mean, expected his life to end there, but it did, and I think that. Uh, I loved him because he was a good friend of mine. He was a good friend of mine. We got along very well, and we're always joking and laughing and things like this. But it was the Great Spirit, Wakatonka's decision to take it, and there had to be a reason. Uh, and I think the family should be proud of their father and grandfather. You should know that he was there and he fought like a warrior, and he was a good man. He was a good warrior. So don't let anybody tell you any different. Joe was a good warrior that day. Uh, I wish he'd have listened to me a little bit more, but he didn't for some reason. I don't know. Maybe he didn't have time. I don't know what it was, but uh, his life was taken, and we should honor it as a gift to the people, a gift to the nations. So that's what I want to say about Joe. And the Christmas gifts, I forget when I started that program, but it was quite a while ago because as a child, I understood uh, what it was to go a day of without any gifts or for anything like that. It just wasn't happening in my family. But I want you to understand, I am not celebrating Christmas. I will not celebrate Christmas, like I will not celebrate Thanksgiving, which is coming up. I've been invited to a number of different Thanksgivings, and I do not intend to attend any of them, and I won't. And I what we used to do in prison is save the food and eat on the following day of Thanksgiving. And because the food was rare and it was good, and we only got that food once a year, so that's the way we did it. Those of us that believed in this, and some of the other ones didn't. They went down there for Thanksgiving. They celebrated with the enemies, what we called them, and uh, I intend to continue doing that. And we will have dinner because we are honoring the gift that the Great Spirit has given us, the food, the nourishment uh, for uh, uh, for this special uh, so-called special event, which we had no we had no desire to celebrate, and but that's because the food was good. The food was rare on that day, and that's what I intend to do this year. Christmas is the same way. I do not celebrate Christmas. I do not celebrate uh, Jesus. I don't know, or the Christians' religion. And the thing about it is that in a very short time in the future, there's a big event going on, and I've been invited, and it's going on in the Vatican. And I want people to know that I haven't sold out. I'm just going there because there's a possibility of some good contacts, good connections there to help our people from what is the latest attack we're getting on us. For how they're talking about the treaties are too old and they should be abolished and stuff like that. That's another attack on us from another source. Same government, same, just another source, a leader, so-called leadership, and we're in trouble. Yeah, we're in trouble. We got to get out there. We got to unify with everybody that we can. We need all the help we can. I was disappointed that I didn't see any of our people. I hope they were out there, but I didn't get to see any of our people out there for last Sunday. I think it was last Sunday or Saturday or Sunday was millions of people in the streets. There's supposed to be another one coming up this Sunday, and I sure would like to be able. I sure would. I don't know if I can attend those. I don't know how that's going to affect me, but I don't want to go back to prison, so I got to follow these rules and regulations I'm under, which are very strict, by the way, and I to stay out of prison. But that doesn't mean I sold out now, just because I'm following those rules. Does not mean once you start to understand that. That does not mean for 1 second I sold out. I am going to continue to advocate for our people and the freedom of our nations, and uh, I intend to do that for the rest of my life. Uh, 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 I want everybody to understand that. I want to explain this to you guys that uh, I have not given up, I have not sold out, and I will be a voice for the people. And I will attend some of these events, but like I was saying, in Christmas time, just because we give out toys to kids does not mean in any way we are celebrating Christmas or celebrating that religious right. We are not doing that. We are giving to kids who don't receive anything. And them poor little guys, I know how it feels because it happened to me when I was a kid. But I know how it feels, and they don't get no gifts, and they don't get nothing. And uh, that's the reason that we started the giveaway 25, 30 years ago now. I'm not sure, from prison. Just like Save a Child, Eileen and I started that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever it was. Uh, we started those, our own version of those organizations, and that's the only reason that we do that, because those children don't receive anything, and uh, we want to make sure they get some kind of present, present. And well, uh, I don't know what else to say to you. I'll let somebody else talk now, and I'll sit back and listen. But I just wanted you to all understand where I'm coming from, uh, uh, and where I'm going. So uh, I hope I haven't disappointed any of you. I hope I haven't offended any of you. So uh, I'll pass it on to the next spokesperson to speak.
Thank you,
Oh,
my friend.
no shot. No shot.
Thank you, my friend. Everything that you said was right on. I don't think you could offend anybody if you tried. Well, yeah, you could, but you didn't. Paulette, would you like to introduce Ward?
I would love to introduce Ward. And Ward, there is a friend of yours in the chat, Arnold. He says, oh, Timothy Arnold, I'm so happy to see you, Professor Churchill. I've missed your voice in the madness. So I would like everybody to meet Professor Ward Churchill, my comrade, a wonderful author, a staunch supporter of Leonard, part of Denver AIM, um, and someone that I could say that his voice has made immense changes, has helped many people understand the whole question of white supremacy, of the reality of what we are facing. And so I'm hoping Ward will give us a few gems tonight to help us move through this trying times. Ward, so nice to see you. Leonard, it was wonderful. You did great. And everybody in the chat says thank you very much. It's to you, Ward.
See you.
Bonjour.
Well, they told me talk about the taking indigenous lives, primarily with regard to the repression counterinsurgency actually that occurred on Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota during the period 73, 76. You could extend it longer. You could probably begin it earlier. You could begin just another Indian aspect of things, that attitude that contends white supremacy, conquest, and colonization. You can take that back to the first European, and I pronounce that term as well as they pronounce our names, okay? That goes back to the first of them setting foot on terra firma, as they call it, Turtle Island as we call it, which was actually 500 years before Columbus up in Labrador, the Norse, and they cut up a bunch of indigenous people they encountered to make sure they were actually humans and would bleed. So we had a, I guess, scientific experiment that began right there, and it's been ongoing ever since. Now there's purpose to it, and that really ties to Joe Stuntz, how he died. And he was not alone in that particular connection. During the period from the end of the Siege of Wounded Knee, actually during the Siege of Wounded Knee, for the next 3 years, you got at least 69 members and supporters of the American Indian Movement. Jim Vanderwall and I did that count. The FBI responded and said that that was inaccurate, false, defamatory to the FBI and so forth, because, for example, Hobart Horse he died, he passed, he hit whatever you want to call it by virtue of hit and run. Well, he was not a run, and he was hit 3 times as the car backed over his body after hitting him in the first place and then moved forward again. All right. That was not an accident. That was a murder. That murder was never recorded by the FBI as such. And that's the way that went. COINTELPRO had to do with the repression of political movements that were seen to be objectionable and effective by the Federal Bureau of Investigation during those years. This was not the first COINTELPRO. It actually occurred after the cryptonym COINTELPRO, counterintelligence program, as it stood for, the domestic counterintelligence program, which was actually a counter-subversion or basically counterinsurgency, and they were using that term in the internal documents on Pine Ridge during the period that I was just talking about. They were referring to AIM people as insurgents. A memo by Richard Wallace Held, who was the son of Richard G. Held, who was a deputy director of the FBI and had handled the Hampton Clark cover-up, the FBI's involvement in the assassination of Black Panther leadership in Chicago. He had been the SAC, special agent in charge, in Minneapolis before that. So they sent him from D.C., which was, well, they sent him from Chicago, although his office was in D.C. He was a deputy director, as they say. They sent him to Pine Ridge in the aftermath of the Oglala firefight. Leonard would be able to tell you a little bit about that, and has. That's where Joe Stuntz was killed. Okay. Just an Indian, not a man. All right. One of 69. Well, the FBI in countering van der Waals and my list of fatalities may have taken a couple of them off. They may not, in fact, have been political murders, but they added a couple that we didn't have, making it essentially the same count. All right. 70 murders, to round it off, may not sound like so much in the scale of violence that has permeated the United States during its existence, but the population, indigenous population of Pine Ridge during that period was roughly 10,000 people. And if you stack up 70 political murders against that population, what you end up is a rate of homicide in the United States, or what is claimed by the United States, South Dakota being a state of the Union and central, okay, a rate that was 13 times or thereabouts the death rate in the murder capital of the country, according to the Uniform Crime Report of the FBI, which at the time was Detroit, Michigan. On the other hand, it was entirely comparable, virtually interchangeable with the rate of death for political reasons in Chile in the aftermath of the Pinochet coup. Okay, during the 3 years, the same time period that we're talking about, during the same 3 years, Chile had a death rate comparable for political reasons to that in the United States. And that was about 4,000 people in Chile. Now, that horrified good liberal establishment in the United States, and people were wanting to prosecute Henry Kissinger, and Christopher Hitchens wrote a book about it, and so on. And that was accurate enough, but there was not the same degree of horror, outrage, and desire to act on the part of that same liberal establishment in the United States with regard to the rate of death on Pine Ridge. And that's the reason we have the kind of death rates that we have had. Now, it was a matter of policy, program, direct intent on Pine Ridge and the surrounding area during that period of time, okay? But it happens at very similar rates on every reservation in the country. The Sioux complex of reservations or down at San Carlos or wherever. As a matter of course, you got 1,000 by name American Indian women who have just flat out disappeared. Bodies have been found, murdered, and so on over the last few years. And you have a movement that is addressing that, but it's very narrow and it's a very particular interest. There's not the overall horror expressed that if, oh, I don't know, in Brentwood, California, or some other privileged white enclave, you had anywhere approaching that kind of death rate, you'd have just an explosion of outrage. So the Just Another Indian is a matter of repression, policy, and so on, on the part of the United States, and the unconcern of the general population, primarily the white population, that has been going on for all of my life, for all of the lives of anybody that's on this program or likely to be listening to it, and on back to the beginning of the country, and on back before that to the colonial antecedents, and on back all the way to the Vikings. All right. And promises, unless we take cognizance of it and act against it in a coherent way, in a knowledgeable way, it will continue into the future. In fact, the mechanisms of delivery are perfected and tightened up more now than they were during the day that I was just addressing with the FBI repression on Pine Ridge. FBI repression, actually, you almost got to feel sorry for the FBI in a perverted kind of way because they are not the main players these days. All right. But they are still players. They are still doing COINTELPRO, even though it was retitled from counterintelligence to counterterrorism immediately after its existence was discovered. They simply changed the terms. It was described by the Church Committee in the mid-1970s as being criminal in every aspect, and yet no FBI personnel ever did a moment in jail from it. Leonard, to name one, did almost 50 years. Eddie Conway, I just came back from an event in Baltimore honoring him, did 44 years. And in both those cases, one Black Panther, one American Indian movement, there was not a shred of credible evidence leading to the convictions of either one. And that was acknowledged, particularly in Leonard's case, by the courts half his sentence ago. Even though there was no evidence that would hold up to scrutiny, it kept him in prison, and absent some intervention, absent a particular set of circumstances in the colonizing power, he'd still be sitting there today. The FBI wanted him in prison, irrespective of what he did or didn't do. Joe Stuntz was just another Indian, irrespective of anything he did or didn't do. That's the name of the game. So, I think I'll wrap it up there. Talking about COINTELPRO in a 15-minute time frame is difficult, to say the least. During my period teaching the university, I used to do courses on it in which we did 15 weeks, twice a week, an hour twice a week, 30 hours of it nonstop, and left out far more than we were able to include. So I thank you very much for listening. All right. Hopefully you picked up something from this that's useful, and Doksha.
Doksa, thank you.
Doksha.
Someday when you're up to it, I would like to record you just talking for as long as you want. Opium, would you like to introduce Mr. Lenny Foster?
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Ward. That was great. It's always very inspiring to listen to you talk. Thank you, everyone, for being here. My name is Opium Sabah, hip hop artist, activist, and producer, part of the Leonard Peltier now official support committee, also part of Oakland Jericho. Our next guest is another very important person and figure. He has been the spiritual advisor of the Leonard Peltier Ad Hoc Committee, now the Leonard Peltier Official Support Committee, pretty much the whole time since Leonard started the committee. He's also been Leonard's spiritual advisor throughout his whole incarceration. They've been very close and very good friends. I think since around 1973 or so. If I'm wrong, please correct me, Lenny. So yes, everyone, please give it up for the one and only Lenny Foster.
Oh, thank you. She ki an strong an was sim Tupai das chenagan das another. Would an have a hunch teho lady ado yisanasha. Would behas alt iso sa behadit don't need by Henson. Dequel Leonard Peltier by Yatke in Hanatsa. By Henitson. Just want to thank all of you. It's an honor for me to be among you this afternoon to share or share some experiences, some thoughts based on what we're been involved in. Myself, I participated with the American Indian movement since 1970 when I joined the American Indian chapter of Denver, Colorado. At that time, the late Vernon Balcourt was the director. I was very impressed with these gentlemen that I met. It was Vernon, Clyde, Russ, DJ, and also Leonard Peltier. I met him on the streets right there in Denver in 1970 in the fall. That's when the AIM chapter began. So I feel that I was blessed to be among these distinguished leaders of a movement that captured the imagination, the headlines for treaty rights, for human rights of Indian people, and to have gone through the different campaigns, including Alcatraz, BIA takeover, Raymond Yellow Thunder, Wounded Knee, the takeover at Novitiate. I was there with Leonard Peltier. We went on patrol in the snowstorms and fighting the National Guard of Wisconsin. That was quite an experience. That also led to longest walk where plans were made to introduce legislation that would prohibit the abolition of treaty rights and our abolishing the treaty obligation and status of our people. So that was a big one. We went to Washington, D.C., across the country. It took us 6 months, and that was difficult to walk, to run, including the Big Mountain elders, my relatives, aunts and uncles, grandmas and grandpas from Big Mountain. Many of them are all gone now, but I remember that. And what sticks out in my mind that I think about a lot is the takeover of Wounded Knee. I go back in my mind thinking about the firefights and just the seriousness of what treaty rights and obligations, legal, moral obligations that the United States government, the relationship we have that our ancestors stood up for so we could continue that struggle. And I was able to survive 11 firefights. One initially towards the beginning, I almost got shot. I was in a little big one bunker with people like John Carlson, Dick Lagarde, Percy Casper, Fuzzy Miller, Menominee Warrior Society. So I remember all of that. I remember it well. And, of course, when I got home back to the Navajo Reservation, I had ceremonies, Native American church, and then I also joined a Sundance that our medicine leader, Leonard Crodog, encouraged all of us to Sundance. And I didn't know anything about it. And when I went to witness it, wow, that's it. I wonder if I could do that. The piercing, dragging the skulls, that I questioned myself if I would be able to do that. And I just told myself that got to have faith to be tested. And eventually I did. I Sundanced with Leonard Peltier in 1975, and I took part in 26 summers, 26 years, sundancing, dragging the skull. It was difficult. It was never easy. Anan tagot na Hawaii got Sunday so it was a very difficult, but it was a beautiful experience. Sundance at Crow Dog's Paradise, at Porcupine, Green Grass, Big Mountain, and finished up in 1999 in Pipestone. That was Clyde Belcourt, Dennis Banks. So that was one of the beautiful ceremonies that I participated in. The American Indian movement, they encouraged that. And, I took the experiences I had up to that time based on my visits to Englewood, Colorado, where we took a drum into the prison, the Indian boys. They had to learn how to sing and drum. Then also other facilities like Florence, Arizona, San Quentin, Potosi, Missouri, San Quentin. I did 5 death row cases in the witness execution of our natives. And that was an experience also because my clients who were Native Americans, American Indian, Derek Gerloff from Pima in Florence, Arizona, asked me, his family asked me to be present for the execution. At first, I was hesitant, but I said, okay, I'll do it because the family asked me and he asked me, so I did that. And eventually, I did other spiritual counseling, the last rite ceremony, fighting for the sweat lodge. And having that last rite ceremony was a difficult task because the white man, like the theme of what we're talking about, just another Indian. That's how they looked at us. The racism was very extreme. And I took this experience into the state capital, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, and Washington, D.C., and testified about the need for our ancient ceremonial practices, including the sweat lodge, the pipe ceremony, having long hair. So I was able to do that. And at times, the wardens at Florence, Colorado, Safford, Arizona, Latuna, Texas, asked me, are you still with the American Indian movement? And here I thought I was trying to keep it under wraps and hide it. And then they would call me into the office. The chaplain would say that the warden wants to talk to you. And I was wondering what they wanted to talk to me about. So I'd go in there and they'd say, come on in, close the door. And that was the first thing they would say, are you still with the American Indian movement? So I had to be quick on my feet to answer that. I told them it was a spiritual movement. It was a indulgence, awareness of our spiritual, traditional, religious practices. And that's what the movement provided us. And they accepted that. There wasn't just firefights and standing up to them and all of that. And all this time, Leonard was doing time. I used to go see him in Leavenworth, Kansas, and it was always an experience. And I did that for 37 years, and it always moved me. I always felt a little sadness when I would leave at the end of the day. I'd be there around 10 o'clock till 3:30 or 3 o'clock. Then once I would leave, I'd be out in the parking lot thinking to myself, what we just did, what I just conducted a ceremony. And we had good, hot spiritual blessing ceremonies. And it always stuck with me. But as I would leave and catch the plane from Leavenworth back to Albuquerque, New Mexico, I always thought about it. And there was always I felt a little sadness leaving Leonard like that. And he would always say to me to come back, don't forget me, help me get out of here. I don't want to die in here. And that always moved me. I always it was hard to convey that feeling to anyone out here in the free world when I got back to Winter Rock, Arizona, and was working for the Navajo Nation Corrections Project, which was a spiritual counseling program. And I traveled to 93 prisons, state and federal prisons throughout this country, 26 states, engaging in legislation. The strategy behind that was to change, amend the state laws to incorporate religious practice for Native Americans. And we were successful in Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah. And I testified twice in Congress. And those were some very tough, intense moments. I remember went before the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs. Senator John McCain from Arizona, he wanted to know why we were asking for the sweat lodge. He didn't understand. And here he was a United States senator, but he was as Vernon Belcourt used to say, they're scholastically retarded. They might have all the degrees, but they didn't know nothing about native beliefs and native spirituality. And that was another experience for me, stepping from the Indian world into the white world and testifying before Congress. Then I went to the United Nations Human Rights Commission in Geneva, Switzerland, testified, and also in New York City at a Permanent Forum for Indigenous Peoples Conference. So these experiences that I was able to obtain a real foundation, a feeling through the ancient ceremonial practices and the American Indian movement really encouraged that. And Leonard Crodog, I always remember him sitting with him in a peyote ceremony all night long, eating medicine, praying, and then he'd be looking at me and then come over with a cedar and tell me to make a prayer with a cedar. He'd give me the cedar bag, and I had to get up. The peyote's working on me, and to get up and stand in front of a fireplace and make an offering with the cedar. So those are very beautiful memories.
1 minute,
But,
Lenny Foster.
yes, ma'am. So I just want to share that because that was an experience that counters that. Yeah, he's just another Indian. That's how the white man looks at us, the racism, whether it's at the federal capital, state capital, or even down to the city and government. So I just want to share that. And it's my honor to be with all of you. And thank you. Yeah.
Gurwitz.
Oh,
Thank you so much, Mr. Lenny Foster.
Thank you, Lenny.
Joy to listen to.
Hold me talk with the same.
Tracker,
Oh,
would you like to
Charlotte.
introduce
We're going to introduce Autumn, and not last but least, and not to include that she is a strong matriarch, and she's built a career of 38 years of American Indian advocacy, policy, and programming. Autumn's focus is developing and implementing Indian country, especially for tribal youth. Her work and covers immensely saturating, making sure that she's connected to not only her ceremony and her indigenous life pathways, but also her work includes adult justice, juvenile justice for American Indian and Alaska Native populations, substance abuse prevention. She has a long history of family and generations in the Southwest and is very integrated in First Nation country. She's also served as executive director of the Minnesota Restorative Justice Campaign for 5 years. She's a longtime strong matriarch and a voice for the matriarchs. Thank you, Stephanie.
Good evening, everyone. And before I start, my driver's license name is Stephanie Autumn. My Hopi name is Kimiosi. There's not a translation for that. It represents a time of the year when this medicine cactus blooms. I was adopted by several families on the Pine Ridge Reservation, and they gave me the name Ta Chante Oyate Onagewi, which means she holds the people in her heart woman. Most importantly, I'm the mother of 5 children. I'm the grandmother of 17 children, and I have 2 great-grandchildren. I was 17 years old when I went to Wounded Knee, and that changed my life. I say anything more about myself, I want to thank Leonard because working beside him for over 45 years, going to the prisons to work with them, pray with them, try to help strategize. I saw firsthand the sacrifices that he made. Being a mother, I know what he gave up, being a father, being a grandfather. So I want to thank him for all the sacrifices over the last 50 years and want to recognize my brother Lenny. We were in Wounded Knee together. We've been in and out of many prisons together. We've been in prison. We've been together where Leonard was incarcerated. So I thank you, Lenny, for everything that you've done for the movement. And Ward, I know that you've given yourself tirelessly across Indian country and all over the continent in terms of to raise up the issues that our people have been facing since the colonizers stepped foot on Turtle Island. And before I go, and I also want to recognize our brother, little brother, Joseph Stuntz, who gave his life. But it would be, I really need to recognize some warrior women because without them, I would not even be part of this conversation. Without them, there would be thousands of Native women that are part of the American Indian movement that would not be doing their work. So I would like to recognize right now the warrior women from Wounded Knee, Gladys Bisonet, Cheyenne Nichols, Ellen Moosecamp, Geraldine Janice. They were on the front lines during Wounded Knee. They impacted women like myself that we came to Wounded Knee not knowing why the Tunkashulas gave us our life, what we were to do with our life, and they showed us. And I also want to recognize my sisters that are still on Turtle Island, and that's Madonna Thunderhawk and Mabel Ann Eagle Hunter, and my sister Juanita Espinoza. They're still on the front lines fighting for the movement, fighting for our people. So I wanted to acknowledge them and also encourage everyone that is part of this webinar that if you only know a small part of history, you really need to travel back in time to put everything that has happened, why the American Indian movement was born into context. So when I hear the words just another Indian, I have to really put it into historical context because that's that verbiage, that hate, that racism, that way of seeing us is nothing new to Indian people. So you may have never ever heard this before, but there was a statement made by Commander, U.S. Attorney General, Commander, way back in 1886. The only good Indian is a dead Indian. And then in 1894, Captain Richard Pratt, he made a statement, kill the Indian and save the man. So this statement about just another Indian is nothing new. Since the coming of the colonizers, we've been at war, really, because what we're calling the American Indian movement, what we're saying about standing on the front lines, it's always been about our land. It's always been about our resources. It's always been about our way of life. It's always been about us being able to retain who we are and our place on Turtle Island. So the movement just didn't happen in the 70s. It's been ongoing. Our ancestors, if it wasn't for our ancestors, we would not be here today. I know if it wasn't for my ancestors, I wouldn't have my breath of life. I wouldn't be able to pray. It's important for everyone that's part of this learning tonight to realize that in we weren't even considered American citizens until 1924. It's important for everyone in this learning tonight to realize that our way of life has been criminalized and we were not even given the right to pray into 1978. So everything that led to from the protest and the march and the standing from the murder of Raymond Yellow Thunder to the occupation of Wounded Knee to Leonard Crow Dogs to the shootout has been a result of our ancestors fighting this long for the land, for the resources, for us to be able to be who we are. There's only 576 Native nations left today, whereas there were thousands and thousands when the colonizers first came here. But I also want to share something that changed my life, and I believe I can't speak for Leonard. I would never want to do that, or my brother, Lenny Foster. But Lenny, I think when we went to Wounded Knee, we thought we knew what freedom was. But I, for one, can say that I never knew what freedom was until the occupation of Wounded Knee. We were truly a free Oglala Lakota nation there. We were surrounded by the United States Army. We had the CIA, the FBI, but we were free. And I think that's why we stood. And I think that's why we fought. We didn't even, think about dying because we knew this freedom was what our children should be able to experience, and their children and their children. So it's important for everyone in this learning to really do their work and understand the true history of Indigenous people and the colonizers and the settlers, since the very beginning of time. And then you could really better understand how the American Indian movement was born. And the American Indian movement is still alive. It didn't end with jumping bulls. The American Indian movement is a grassroots movement still. It's a national movement still. And what I feel is really important for those that are on this webinar today to understand is, when they first came here, they tried to kill our food source. They tried to decimate our food sources. If you do your research, you'll see thousands and thousands and thousands of what we call the Pteoyate, the Buffalo Nation, murdered, slaughtered as a way to kill us. So they have been consistently trying to wipe out Indigenous people to get this land. And that's the same for today in 2025. We're still fighting for the land, for the water, for the air. And most importantly, the war against us has changed. While we're not fighting at Wounded Knee, while we're not, at a takeover, what is happening to our people is it's happening with the permission of everyone who calls themselves a United States citizen. Today, as we sit here in this learning webinar, we have to acknowledge that there's over 100,000 Native people that are incarcerated in county and state and in federal prisons. I do a lot of work in Rapid City, and the daily count at that county jail is around 674, and you have 99.8% of those being Lakota people. At the juvenile facilities, it is 99% Indigenous youth being incarcerated, sometimes as young as 10 years old. So it's our people that are being removed, now not forcibly by the land, but through incarceration. If you do your research, I really encourage anyone who is living in a state where there's a large Indigenous population to start doing the research in terms of the incarceration of Indigenous people in your state. Most recently, in the last 20 years, there's been a movement in terms of the incarceration of Indigenous women. Indigenous women are now incarcerated at a much higher rate than any other ethnic group in the United States. A couple of examples are in the state of South Dakota, where Indigenous women are probably 60% of the prison population. Indigenous men in the state of South Dakota are over 60% of the Indigenous population that's incarcerated there. So a way to get at our land and a way to get at our resources is to incarcerate our people. And now they're incarcerating our youth at higher and higher rates. So it's important to look at incarceration and the prison industry in your state, because prisons are an industry and they're making money off the back of Indigenous incarceration. The United States of America incarcerates more human beings than any country in the United States. That doesn't mean we're safer. It doesn't mean that we have lower crime rates. It just means that we're feeding the belly of the monster, and it's on the back of Indigenous people. We're the smallest population, but we're one of the largest when it comes to the incarceration of Indigenous people. One of the other important pieces to look at today, and it ties back to why we stood at Wounded Knee, why Leonard and those stood at Jumping Bulls, is the brutality against Indigenous women. Ward spoke to it briefly, but I really urge everyone in this webinar to do their research. Across the United States and in Canada today, there's thousands and thousands of missing and murdered Indigenous relatives. It's not just women, it's men, it's two-spirited, and it's children that are missing and murdered. And we don't get the same responses from law enforcement as Caucasian people do or other ethnicities do. You also need to look at the violence that is existing against women in your city, in your county, and it's being perpetrated against Indigenous women. So this struggle here in the United States, it's all intertwined, because if we don't stand today, we know there will not be another 7 generations. We know that if our children are to ever be free, or to know that freedom that we had in Wounded Knee, we have to be in the streets, like Leonard said. We have to be demanding our land back. We have to be willing to fight for it, and we have to be willing to die for it. We have to be willing to say language back. We have to be able to say culture back. We have to be able to say sovereignty back on our terms, not the terms of the United States government. And we have to, above all things, to say freedom back. So tonight, I really want to honor all of those in the movement. There's too many. For those of us that have been part of the movement, I would say the American Indian movement raised me. I was at Wounded Knee. Me and my children lived at Yellow Thunder Camp, and we've been involved in the movement all my life. I raised my children that way. I founded the American Indian Prison Program, and my children are now going into that prison, helping our people behind the iron doors. And I know Leonard's life was a symbol to all of those that were locked up behind the iron doors. And so, Leonard, that's why I say Lila Wopila Tonka, because I too, like what Lenny said, it was hard to leave the prison after a visit with you, knowing that you couldn't see your children, knowing that you couldn't see your grandchildren, knowing that you couldn't sit at a Sundance, knowing that you couldn't go into a NEPI, but you held strong, Leonard, and you were a symbol in terms of not backing down, not giving up, not giving in, and not giving the FBI the information they needed. So tonight I want to salute everybody in the movement whose voice has not been spoken, because people like myself and Lenny and Ward, we often get to have our voice. But there's thousands and thousands of people across Indian country that have given their life, have stood for the water, have stood for the air, and are standing today. So I really urge everyone on this webinar to learn to be involved and to stand with Indigenous people as we try to protect this land, this water, and our life ways for the next 7 generations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Gurwitz.
Stephanie. I just wanted to say that's synonymous with the law, U.S. law that passed, that we all know about May 28th, 1830 with the Indigenous Removal Act. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you, Stephanie. You said a lot. And they are again trying to remove our food sources. Corporate agriculture has poisoned our pollinators, our land, our water, and everything else. We need to escalate and we need to take our planet back. We are going to take a very brief intermission and play a song from Opium Sabah Prima. Leonard is mentioned in it. It's one of my all-time favorite songs. I hear it and I just want it to happen. I want to thank Barbara and Barbara and Franklin for donating. And I'm sure a lot of you have donated and it's coming on different platforms, but we thank you, thank you, thank you. As Leonard says, we are not endorsing Christmas. We are not here to bash Christians, but we are here to acknowledge that the retail industry has turned this into a buy things for kids day. And parents that don't have money feel really bad and the kids feel left out, and Leonard has been trying to change that. So let me play this video. If I can find it.
Blessings. Ashe. Salam.
Peace to Sophia Bukhari,
Albert Washington.
Herman Ferguson,
Richard Mafundi Lake.
Marilyn Buck,
Kuwasi Balagoon.
Phil Ackerman,
Melvin Dixon.
Delbert Ackerman,
Oscar Washington.
Iya Fulani Suni Ali,
Luis Rodriguez.
Afeni Shakur,
Hugo Pinnell.
Mondo Wilango,
Eddie Hatcher.
Herman Wallace,
Robert Webb.
Bashir Hamid,
Lolita LeBron.
Teddy Jahi,
Geronimo G. Jaga.
John Trudell, Fred Hampton. Yeah, man. From the most oppressive system in humanity's existence, disproportionate penalty, sounds for political police. They say in prison they may never be released. For months, and abolition is the key. We see no jobs, the ritual peace, systemic genocide inside the belly of the beast. What's beef being targeted for your beliefs? Politicians and chiefs and the captains of police. They ain't disease, they put you down in the streets. They want you dead or locked with your philosophy. Is a product of history, strategic victory results. The culture works to achieve principles and passion. They get into action. The greatest threat to oppression. They can't let that happen. They want to crush your dreams, destroy your hope. Peace of Sudiana, Asada, and Russell Show. Free them all, let the walls of Jericho fall. Free them all. The children too.
Free them all. Free them all. That Jericho movement gon' free them all. Behind these walls, behind them walls, that Jericho movement gon' free them all.
Before this place was a country, dissenters have had to pay by getting hanged at the gallows or by getting locked away rise up against the empire, try to break your chains, or in any way challenge the power of those who hold the reins and hold the prison with charges past bear till we meet your firing squads and your electric chairs from before the FBI storm to the surveillance state of now. You'll know it's the revolution. I'll tell you how when we free them all.
Free them all, let the walls of Jericho fall. Free them all. The two, move me out.
Free them all. Free them all. That Jericho movement gon' free them all. Behind these walls, behind them walls, that Jericho movement gon' free them all. Justice, education, retribution, integrity. This coalition organized that has to be honoring all those who led before and after me, from the BPP to that AIM movement. That's the type of schooling that my pop was doing. Peace to all prisoners of dictator politics. We fight to abolish it. Dedicate to stopping it. Free them all the movement Jericho. Revolution televised, but in stereo. Our heart being it's the first call to action. I've been doing that since before I knew action. Mr. President, on behalf of the residents, Green Boom here and Leonard Peltier. Y'all been doing this for over 500 years. Free Bill Dunn and my Udo Blanco in solidarity survival till I got free.
Free them all, let the walls of Jericho fall. Free them all. The two, move me out.
Free them all. Free them all. That Jericho movement gon' free them all. Behind these walls, behind them walls, that Jericho movement gon' free them all.
Thank you, Opium, for that song. I had to have my camera off because I cannot not dance when that song's on. Even when I'm going 70 miles an hour and my dog's hanging out the window with his driving goggles on, it looks really weird. Oh. I've got to make it stop now. You know what? I'm going to mute myself until I can make this stop.
I want to stay, but I can't help from walking out. So little wait to take my hand and understand. If you could see.
Well, thank you again, Opium, for your music, your beautiful music. And
Okay.
I just want to say, so I'll say that, so Joseph Stunt's story, how the conflict on Pine Ridge didn't end with that formal occupation of Wounded Knee, and how on all reservations that weren't, that didn't represent anything as formally, in history. However, there's all over in all the reservations and all indigenous peoples, and now it's affecting, all people, the water, the trees, the earth, all the land, the food sovereignty. And so his death surrounding the heavy law enforcement presence, the roadblocks, gunfire, community harassment, it's just something that has happened and continues to happen. So it's an honor to be here for his memorial and with Leonard and everyone here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracker. And thank you, Leonard, for taking the hit for all of us and not bending. Is there anything else you'd like to say, my friend, or you kind of talked out?
Who, to me?
Yeah.
Well,
Like to add anything?
not necessarily, but
You don't have to. You've done enough. Thank you for being here.
I would just like to say, with my pleasure of being on here with some of you guys, that this is the first time we had happened, and Stephanie, especially with Stephanie and Ward, people, Lenny Foster, got a lot of good words, and well, Oh. And like to say good night. We got other things to do and other places to be. So I'm
Good
gonna
night, my friend. And just so you know, the work's not over. Leonard is still under BOP confinement, and we need to get him all the way free.
I'd appreciate it.
I'm sorry, Leonard.
I said I'd appreciate it. Basically,
Your world's away from going blind in lockdown, but we need to get you free. Ward, is there anything you'd like to add?
what? Oh,
Just that, yes, the struggle goes on. Yes, the repression goes on. The repression actually, I don't know exactly what the word should be, but the Trumpies hand it to them. They're beginning to acquaint the entire population, poor whites included, with the kind of repression that communities of color, particularly the indigenous community, have been suffering all along. And the nature of the change, the nature of the response, I don't know yet. If you can do a white supremacist revolution, I would imagine some of them are going to give that one a run. But, you know, there is a whole lot of flux going on right now. And putting the history, how things have moved from where they were a generation, 2 generations ago to where they are now and where it appears that they're headed. Well, the injection of the facts, that is not the alternative facts, not the fabricated facts, but the actual facts of the matter, the emphasis being applied where it should be applied, is absolutely essential. And the contextualization, socially and politically, but environmentally, and so on as well. And this group, more than most that I've encountered, and I've encountered a lot over the last 50 years, this group is right on top of that one, right on top of understanding that you do not place yourself properly in the context without beginning with the land, the resources of the land, the other relations on the land, in the land, over the land. Yeah. That's the way it has always been for Indigenous people, those who still act as Indigenous people. And that's the way it will remain. How that figures in that flux I was talking about, well, we'll see. But the struggle goes on. The struggle goes on in consistency. It always has, and it always will. And with that said, Wado, Ntaka.
Oh,
Thank
Wait,
you, Mr. Ward Churchill. Lenny Foster, would you like to add anything?
I just want to thank all of you for sharing, talking about your feelings and your experience. I'm working on a book on my experience with AIM and all the campaign. I'd like to acknowledge the professor that's helping write this book, Dr. Jihan LBC. If she's out there in the audience, wave your hand.
yes, she is, Letty. She says hello.
Okay. And Leonard, it's good to see you. Pray for you. Boy, you're an inspiration, not only to me, but all of Indian country. Don't ever forget that. You showed us the will, the desire to live and to lead. Eyat el natsataisen, citizen bekeo, na adyouch inenza, eba kenitsen. So thank you. Thank all of you.
Yes,
Thank you, Lenny
Wopilatonka.
Foster. Stephanie, would you like to add anything?
Yes. Wopilatonka, of course, to L, as I affectionately call him, L, and to Ward and to Lenny for bringing their voice, and to everyone that is part of making this evening possible. I did want to share a couple of things that I didn't before. And one of them is if you've read Leonard's book, My Life is My Sundance. If you haven't read it, I would really urge you to read it. And just that title really imprinted my life because he is a true example of his life was his Sundance. While he couldn't participate in ceremony every minute, every hour, every day, every week, every month, every year behind bars was his Sundance. And I don't know if there's any human beings that are alive today that could sacrifice what he did for his people. I also want to urge all of you to reach out to others that are that want to fight the repression, oppression, and stand with Indigenous people across Turtle Island because we need good allies. Our people need support. I also wanted to mention that I go back to Pine Ridge every month. I have a lot of Hunkar relatives go to ceremony there. And it's sad to say that today in 2025, not much has changed from 1973. The people on Pine Ridge are still living in the poorest county than any other county in the United States of America. The unemployment rate for Lakota people is one of the highest unemployment rates in the United States of America. The rates of incarceration of Lakota people are higher than most Indigenous tribes across Turtle Island. The mortality rate, the health challenges. Indigenous people, if you research our statistics, Ward, Lenny, Leonard, and myself, we shouldn't even be here because Indigenous men, I think if I've got this right, Ward, you'll correct me. I think the life expectancy of American Indian males is something like 43 or 45. So we're lucky that the three of you are still here and still fighting. The life expectancy of Indigenous women is 52. So we need all of you to stand with us across Turtle Island, not in front of us, not behind us, but besides us as we stand for the future of our children and the future generations that have been yet to be born. One of the things that I always remember when we're in ceremony or when we're standing is something that Crow Dog used to say. He used to say, it's hard, but we do these things so that our people can live. So with that, I thank everybody. I thank you for letting me share my voice this evening.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's
Thank you,
wonderful
Stephanie.
to have your voice heard again amongst us.
Yeah, I've never met you, but I really enjoyed listening to you. Tracker, Opie, and Paulette, would you each like to take a couple of minutes?
Well, I just wanted to say that, as part of the Jericho movement and the advisory board, it was wonderful to get to see Leonard outside, even though has a different prison, but to sit down and have a cup of coffee with him at a table, for him to play with his dogs and everything. It shows what we can do if we all continue to work together to free our political prisoners. We cannot leave someone behind. We have native prisoners, Chubbuck, who calls Leonard uncle, and women who have been in there for years. So I would ask you all to, as Stephanie said, look into prison, see who's there, who you can help. Sometimes it just takes a small letter finding out if you do go to a church, who their ministry is, and see what you can do to help someone behind the walls. Because I'm sad to say that I think the walls are going to get much larger as the Orange Man continues his walk across this beautiful land. So we have to be prepared. We have to stand together. I've known Stephanie for many, many years, and it is always an honor to stand next to her. And so I say, miigwech, Stephanie.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, each and every person here. And I want to just thank Leonard for being here. We know that he has a lot of demands on his schedule and calendar. So I really entrust that his connection to his spirit and connection to his community and his sacred fire brings him to each to every one that he needs to be at. Leonard, thank you. And I did read Sundance is My Life. I am a Sundancer, and I really understand the concept of why our history is what it is, and through the prophecies. You know, there's many prophecies in First Nations, and all two-legged, all the colors. And one of the prophecies is that we were all going to stand up to pray together, sing together, eat together. We're all going to stand up. And with that prophecy is that we all need to go back to our own communities, not physically, but just go back and find your spirit in your community and eat the food, do your ceremony, speak your language, and that to help put everything back in order that has been displaced. I will say this, that I love to walk with people who stand up for Indigenous people, and I'm inspired every day. And, you know, those people, I'm sure, a lot of those people carry Leonard Peltier's name in their heart, and many people who are advocates for our ways and for the teachings. And so this past October 18, 2025, we had a meeting last night, and there was 12 million people that protested and stood up. And the social media that we put out there was for that day, October 18th. And all over the world, they stood up too, because also they are part of the prophecy. So natives, non-natives, all walks of life, for the no thrones, no crowns, and no kings. So I'm inspired by that, and I just want to inspire all of you that we are going in the right direction, and we are on a journey of profound healing always, as long as we stay connected and we work together in unity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tracker. Opium, I know you have to take off in a minute. Would you like to say anything?
Sure, yes. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, everyone, for being here and sharing the space with us. Big thanks to Leonard, to Ward, to Stephanie, to Mr. Lenny Foster. As Paulette said, it's been very inspiring and amazing working with Jericho all these years, and to finally see Leonard be able to get outside of those prison walls, and very very gracious and happy that that finally happened for him. But as many of us has said, you know, the war is still upon us. The struggle is still upon us. This was a great and, you know, very needed victory for Leonard to come home and to finally be on the other side of those walls. But we are far from free. We should all be using our voices to stand up, to fight, to resist, however that may be possible for you. I'm very honored to be part of this committee and to be working and fighting and resisting amongst, you know, Dawn, Gina, Kalanji, Jennifer, Susie, Lenny, anyone else who I might be blanking on right now, my apologies, but it's sincerely been an honor to work with you all and to be part of bringing Leonard home. And I posted some links to our Instagram. It's a great way to stay up to date with what's happening with Leonard, what's happening with the committee, what's happening with social issues and calls to action, and of course our website, freeleonardpeltiernow.org. Again, thank you everyone for being here, And as they say, straight ahead.
Free them all.
Free them all, free the land.
Thank you, Opium, and thank you, Jose and Robert. You've made some kids happy. And as Madonna Thunderheart says, resistance is an obligation. Period. What I love about Leonard Peltier supporters is they have not forgotten him. So many of our political prisoners get out and people forget, but Leonard supporters are stepping up day after day after day. Thank you all so much for being here. Every one of you has added something incredible. And stay tuned for the next one. Thank you all for being here. Doksha.
Free Palestine from the river to the sea. Palestine must be free. Take that with the Lakota people. All indigenous people must have the freedom.
Free 'em all, free the land.
All power to the people.
Gurwitz.
Necessary.
Doksha.